David, who was the youngest of Jesse's 8 sons, was a quiet and unassuming shepherd boy, caring for his father's sheep out in the fields, protecting them from wild animals and ensuring that they remained alive and in good condition. Now, when his father asked him to take some food to his 3 oldest brothers who were engaged with a battle with the Philistines, from the moment that he arrived, David heard the soldiers speaking about nothing else other than this huge man that they were facing, this fellow called Goliath. Now, it seems that there had been some intelligence received that had suggested that Goliath had been a fighter since his youth. He was experienced. The Israelites were in a sticky situation and it seemed hopeless. Goliath was what we might call a roadblock for them, roaring out a challenge each and every day, calling them to send someone to fight with him one-on-one, and the winner would take all. I think it's easy to understand why no one put their hand up, why no one volunteered, and why everyone stood back. You can understand it, and I can understand it. We get the picture, and undoubtedly we would have been exactly the same. Again, though, in God's perfect timing, this young shepherd boy David arrives on the scene and he sees Goliath in action. And when he saw Goliath in action, he noticed the fear on the faces of those soldiers as they ran for cover to escape the taunts and threats that were being thrown at God's people. That image stirred David up, knowing that this man would stand against and throw insults at the living God. David offered to go out and fight this giant, and although the king was reluctant, he had him suited up in his own armour, the helmet, the chainmail, the works, even the sword. You can picture this, a young man all covered with heavy armour, but barely able to move. David was ready to stand up to this roadblock, but others who were genuinely concerned for his well-being loaded their expectations upon him, and simply, it didn't fit. Now, if we tune our ears to those around us, they may have some wonderful ideas that fit them, but do they fit us and our circumstances? Sometimes they may even weigh us down. In the journey of life, big problems often just crop up at any time. So then, how do we deal with those problems, those roadblocks? David put his trust in the living God. He already knew that God had brought him through many skirmishes in life, including some menacing moments out in the fields. But God was faithful. There is no doubt that he sought the Lord from the moment that he left home, and he was prepared for what was yet to be. Indeed, God had been preparing him through his everyday experiences in life, from the fighting of marauding animals now to an enormous giant of a man. He had had a lot of what we might call on-the-job training, which prepared him for the battles that he would inevitably face. You can't teach that. The soldiers who were no doubt had, or at least they would have had some training, they ran off to hide when they saw and when they heard Goliath. So what did David do? King Saul's armour didn't fit very well, so he used what he knew and what he had, that simple slingshot along with a few stones from the creek. Know this, that when God calls, he equips. In Philippians 4:19 we read, "My God shall supply your every need according to his riches in glory in Jesus Christ." Some of us are tentative about stepping out into our calling. Like David, know that God has been preparing you in advance through your everyday circumstances for what is yet in front of you. David went into battle under circumstances that brave men were running away from. So what was different? His faith in God, his experience of God's protection, along with his humility and a real desire to bring glory to God through the victory. Winning the battles not about us. Rather, it is so that we can point to Jesus. Are you facing obstacles in life, roadblocks? If you are frozen in fear, or if you feel like running away, if life is difficult and there are giants who seem to be taunting you, consider David, who as a young shepherd boy from the back blocks stood and faced it. He was used mightily by God because he fronted up on the battlefield in the name of God. I trust this week that you have the best week and that you listen to what God is saying to you. Remember, we are blessed to be a blessing.